Hello and welcome to Prog Slog, where we go through 2000 AD issue by issue, or week by week. I've noticed that I've done it both ways in the past.
Issue by issue, week by week.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Craig.
And today we are covering Prog 2352, which is the first time that we've had like a normal Prog, basically.
In the last few weeks, and or going on for a month.
Yeah, this isn't a jumping on point. This isn't the end of something. This isn't a special.
It's kind of a jumping on point.
It's like the set. I mean, there are new stories.
There's new stories.
This is the 2000 AD that has got the first return of the fall of Deadworld. So that's Deadworld, not Dreadworld, and that's what's got the cover here.
It has got the cover, and who's the cover by?
The cover is by Toby Wilsmer.
Toby Wilsmer, the Pokemon.
That's Whisper.
With the kind of confused eyes, the big ears.
Do you have anything to say about the cover?
I like the cover. I like that it's sort of spooky, because we're into spooky month now. It's October.
Yes. It's a nice action shot of a Judge. It's Judge Fairfax, who we'll be hearing about later on.
We'll be hearing a lot about Judge Fairfax.
Oh, will we?
Well, maybe not a lot, but we'll certainly be seeing 5 pages of Judge Fairfax.
That's very true. So, do you like the cover?
I like it. That's good art. It's creepy. It's like if all the covers in October were slightly like Halloween themed.
This one is very Halloween themed because it's quite green and there's bats on it.
It reminds me of Goosebumps covers.
Yeah. 2000 AD, of course, being the legendary British comic sci-fi anthology where you've got Judge Dredd, among others.
I feel conditioned to say legendary British kids anthology sci-fi comic, but it's not really a kids comic and hasn't been for decades.
It certainly isn't a kids comic now, and I think it would have been for teenagers more even back then.
I feel compelled to say it every time for some reason.
You've read earlier 2000 ADs than I have, I think, for the most part, because you've got some of their collections.
Yes. I would say that it might have actually been for kids, but the material for kids in the 70s went super hard. It does have the tone of public service announcement, death and destruction, because it's maybe less sex, less sexy.
Well, that will also be coming up this issue. But let's open the cover. Let's see what we've got to say. So, Tharg's Nerve Center. Here we have Tharg talking to us about what's new to this particular prog. We've got the continuation of the Judge Dredd, Feral and Phone Helium stories that we had last week, but because we now have 5 stories instead of 4, we are also joined by the first in the runs of Fall of Deadworld and also something called The Devil's Railroad.
The Devil's Railroad. We're back to 5. They're 5 independent, separate stories. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. Cause
more or less, they will be running together until the end for each of them because they're starting at roughly the same points.
Yeah. And some can be shorter than others because of the way it's been set up, but
you can very much think of 2000 AD as going in arcs like this. And when there's something that's in it that I don't like, I'm often waiting for there to be a big rotation out of the stories.
Often you find yourself saying, or you've said to me, that you feel like they need new stories.
Yes, and they do have a new story in this, because I think The Devil's Railroad is completely original.
It seems completely new from what I've seen. Write in, listeners, and let us know if we're absolutely wrong on that one.
But Tharg is also talking about how we are on the run-up to the... I think he actually starts off by saying that we're now on the run-up to the Christmas period.
Well, he's talking about how these stories, these set of stories, will see us through...
To Christmas, yeah.
To Christmas. And he's like, but wait, we should mention spooky season, because it's not even that.
Yeah, because it's, as Craig was pointing out, a clearly Halloween-looking cover. There's also some other products that they've got... coming out. The back cover actually is an advert for a thing that Tharg's calling out here, which is a collection of terror tales, which, just like the Future Shocks, it's basically like short stories in comic form, but they're
even more horror themed than a Future Shock would probably be.
The Future Shocks tend to be more like ironic, sci-fi short stories.
You could definitely pass them off as horror, though.
They often have the kind of horror element of oh no, we're going to all be taken over by AI and forced to work meaningless jobs forever or something.
There's been a lot of AI stuff recently in 2000 AD.
Well, it is a sci-fi thing that is very much in the news.
It feels like a thing they've probably been talking about for the last 20 years and now it's actually happening. They're like, see, we told you.
And the last thing that he's calling out is that they also have a Halloween edition of Monster Fun.
Yes, I'm a big fan of Monster Fun. That's Rebellion's kids' title now. And Monster Fun seems to be like a historical...
It's very much for kids. It's quite Beano-like.
It's a Beano. It's kind of like the Beano. It's like the Phoenix as well, which you do get in Scotland, but I've not seen on like newsstand distribution in years.
I've never seen a copy of the Phoenix or indeed Buster.
I think it got to like 400 or 500 issues recently. I've seen Buster in the wild, but like not on shelves because it's a thing that comes out special. Like Rebellion, I think, owns Buster as well, but you don't see new Buster. But I've seen like old collections in charity shops and stuff. The Monster Fun, I picked up the Monster Fun because I've been picking it up every month because I want to support them, and I like
support the British comics industry, support Rebellion in particular for us, I guess.
And then they can kick us some progs, it's win-win.
Would be nice.
Would be nice. The Monster Fun has it's been updated, so it's got like a different look, which I don't know if I like.
Well, I only really know it from the cover, and the cover here looks a little bit more, I want to say anime inspired, but again, I don't really mean that. I mean, it looks like a cartoon that is trying to be anime inspired, whereas before it looked much more like the Beano. It's
mostly like the kind of characters and art is sort of inconsequential. It's just they've had a rebrand, like the logo is different. All that kind of thing. I bring it up, well, you bring it up to bring it up, but I bring it up for two reasons. One, they say it's $3.99.
Yep.
And it's not, it's $4.99.
Oh, really?
So that's either a mistake or that's the price that you get it for on monsterfun.co.uk.
Well, it is saying $3.99/monsterfun.co.uk.
So it's either a mistake, and the Mighty One, he doesn't make mistakes, so it's not that.
Indeed.
Or it might just be like the subscription price or the you get it online price or whatever, the digital comic price.
It could very well be that, because I know that 2000 AD comes out earlier if you get it online or something.
It comes out on the Saturday. Well, no, that's not online. That's if you're subscribed.
That's a subscription.
They send it to your door on the Saturday. And I don't know if it came out originally on Saturday, so they're like playing on to like a nostalgia thing for him.
Yeah, well, potential hot tip, I guess, get your Monster Fun online and maybe it'll be £1 cheaper.
It's worth it. The other thing I want to point out from the Monster Fun Halloween special is it's a Halloween special of a monster comic. Like, it's always Halloween themed.
Yeah,
like, that's its selling point. But like this month, because it's Halloween month, they're doing a Halloween special.
Well, you would have to. It would be weird if you didn't make a big deal.
It'd be super weird if you didn't. But like, it's just funny to see, and like that's its selling point, that it's a Halloween this month.
It would be funny actually if on Halloween the Halloween special of Monster Fun was just like normal kids.
Yeah, like it was just like complete normies.
I don't think kids would get that.
No,
I would find it very funny.
You would love it and never buy it.
Anyway, getting back to the comic that we're actually talking about, the Damage Report has continued to develop this the Damage Report droids positivity thing, and again, it's kind of a bit nothing.
I found it even more nothing than last time.
Well, he's basically saying it seems like it's kind of like a false smile kind of thing, because he's like, I'm being so positive and like productivity's way up and we've only had to feed 35% of the art droids to MechQuake for slacking off.
Yeah.
And MechQuake is a character in, I think, the ABC Warriors or something.
Unclear.
He's a big robot with like big chompy jaws at the bottom, and he sometimes appears in the like 2000 AD kayfabe.
Yeah, he's part of the offices. The thing I want to bring up about the Damage Report this week is nothing at all that's in the Damage Report. Did you see the news story the other day that there was a massive fireball over Oxford?
A fireball?
A huge explosion in Oxford because of a lightning strike.
Okay.
And like, I want to see if this gets developed into the Damage Report,
because they do sometimes do that.
They do that, and like the damage afterwards, it was big, like kind of gas containers or something like that, but they were big cylindrical things that looked like they could have been some sort of spaceship type thing that exploded. And if they don't, I feel like they're just missing free content if they don't like.
That is a good point.
Because it's specifically a huge like the footage of it was like a massive fireball in the sky over Oxford. So
haven't seen a single thing about that.
So if this, I want to see if this happy like too positive art droid spirals into, and then we all exploded for some reason.
You definitely could do.
Yeah.
And anytime that there is something like that, I do always think like, is the Cell games happening and the media's not reporting on it or something?
You should see the footage because it was like a horizon. It was the full sky was I don't think anybody died, but like it was a massive comedy looking explosion.
Well, hopefully no injuries were had.
Well, I've not properly looked into it, so maybe they did. But it was reported on in such a kind of positive way, or like a this was a carnage kind of thing. We should probably move on to things that are in the comic.
So, Judge Dredd, Poison Part 2, script by Rob Williams, art by PJ Holden, colours by Peter Doherty, and letters by Simon Boland. So, this is the continuing story of Dredd looking into Hershey's murder. Mm-hmm. We're still in space, which I kind of wasn't expecting.
I wasn't expecting and was super disappointed about.
Well,
it gives us a cracking first page.
It does. We've got Dredd, like, staring out into the stars. The black abyss with like little dots of white all over the place, and he's doing a bit of philosophizing. Mm-hmm. He's saying, all these stars, all these inhabited planets, so many beings out there, and it's life abundance. And his final thought is creeps everywhere.
Great page, love it. No notes.
Yep, just the existence of the wonder of life just means the opportunity for crime.
Crime. The secret ingredient is crime, and it's on every planet, and like according to his philosophy and to his views,
that's the only thing that matters.
If he can get up and nightstick some ETs.
I would prefer him not to, as we've discussed. I don't like it when aliens turn up. I think it's too sci-fi.
Well, to bring it back to the last Prog Slog, I think it's fine if they're coming to Mega City 1, but it's not as fine to me when he's out and about in the world, in the worlds.
Yeah.
This is. Did you like this? Did you like this?
Well, we should probably get on to what actually happens.
Yeah, if you want to go through
my full thoughts. But we cut back to this Nubis colony that they've been on, and Dredd and the Wally Squad judge have been interrogating the guy who apparently poisoned Hershey, and they've been keeping him up without sleep for 36 hours, I think he 36
says. He's got very red eyes.
Yeah, and they've had him... Because the last thing was he said that the guy who gave him the poison came from Mega City 1. So they've just sat him down in front of all of the footage of people coming to this colony from Mega City 1 until he sees the guy.
Yeah.
And the first interaction that he gets is like, please, just let me sleep. You've had me here looking at this one security feed for 36 hours. I don't see him. I don't recognise anybody here. How could I possibly be expected to when I haven't slept for more than a day?
Yeah, it's very good. It's very good, very bad fascist work. Where you're not going to get good information out of this guy that you've roughed up and are keeping terrified and awake.
Absolutely. It should be said that torture does not work.
It does not work.
And absolutely might not work going forward in this story, but I think it probably will.
I think they needed to get to a place.
They didn't need...
this didn't have to be an issue. Like, they could have just went and got a guy.
Yeah, but I think this is a part of the chain of the procedure. Yeah. I like that. I like when there's actual detective work being done and they have to get their leads from somewhere.
I like it, but I have limits for it in Dredd.
Dredd isn't taking any of that shite about, like, please let me sleep.
No.
He says, you have fatally poisoned a Mega City Chief Judge, and, the punishment for treason is execution, so, come on.
There's a bit where he leans in.
If you want to survive.
He leans in, he's like, I've executed citizens for treason. I will do it again.
He absolutely has.
Yeah.
But, anyway, so after... a bit of time, we do get a cut back to the lab where
the boys in the lab,
the boys in the lab have been re-examining the poison that's killed Hershey, and there's a weird bit here where they're saying, for one thing, it definitely is alien, but also it's been made to look alien.
Yeah, like from what I get from it is that the bad guys have taken an alien thing, added some more gene stuff to it, because they call it a cocktail of a virus or a pathogen or whatever, or a poison. So, like, they've made it look like it's alien or more alien or just alien.
Purely alien, but with a modification that isn't.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in here where I'm like... Because, like, if you remember from last Prog, I was talking about how, like, I don't necessarily need any of this. And, like, it's definitely going in the direction that someone killed Hershey specifically. Like, it was an assassination.
It's an assassination.
And, like, I feel like... I mean, that's a way to go. Like, it's good that Dredd...
It's a way to get a story out of it.
It's a good way to get a story out of it, and it's a good way to, like, keep, like, going with the Hershey... Because you want Dredd to follow up on the Hershey stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though it was played off that he didn't give a fuck. But we talked about that. That's just his way.
Yep.
That's just how he emotes, i.e. not at all.
Yeah.
But,
Either not at all, or with extreme violence.
But the combination of this whole strip is not necessarily a thing that I need. It's good. I'm enjoying it. But it's not something I want or need. And they're still stuck on this little colony and not going back to Mega City 1 at the start of this.
Well, we'll see where they go at the next issue. But anyway, after that little interlude, that's given the story enough spacing time between scenes with the guy looking for the guy who supplied him, for him to have seen and recognised the man himself walking into the spaceport in the old footage. And they run his face through facial recognition.
It's got a pixel filter on it. I love it.
And they find out who he is, and he has been involved in something called the Judge Clones case.
The Judge Clones case, which there's a little Tharg note to tell you where to go look back to, and I thought he was mentioning Prog 300 or whatever.
So did I. I don't know which I would have preferred, actually, because it's actually a case that turned up in the magazine 339 and 340.
Which, could have been a long time ago. I forget what magazine we covered for Battle Action, but I don't think it was that long ago.
Apparently, the clone judge cases was that he'd made nobody knows where he got the DNA to do this, but he'd made clones of various judges and put them into Clockwork Orange machines, where they were just subjected to horrible images forever until they became killers.
Yep.
Which, I don't know, Mega City 1 Justice Department's kind of already done that to the original copies.
Yeah, but, presumably if you clone someone, they wouldn't be judges. They would just be people that happen to look like judges.
Yeah.
So, because Dredd brings up that maybe he was trying to make a political point or something.
Yeah.
And
this seems a bit like they're trying to rescue that story to me.
Right, is that what you...
Well, that's where my mind goes. I didn't read that story because it was in the magazine.
Well, it brings up the fact that there was a Hershey clone.
There was a Hershey clone.
And, I'm are we doing, are we bringing, Anne Hershey into the... we've killed Hershey, but there's a clone of Hershey potentially.
Oh, are you thinking maybe this is a way to bring Hershey back?
Potentially. The more this story goes on, right, the more there's potential for there to be a twist. Oh, look, there's Hershey. And I don't know if that'll be a clone or, maybe she didn't die because she died in such, an odd, non-heroic way, which I think was appropriate, but, you could definitely do that as, another fake death or whatever. But, the threat of a new Hershey exists now.
That is a good point. I hadn't considered that. Because, of course, if you can make one clone, you can make any number of clones.
And, maybe there'll be clones that come up in stories to come, but they all get shot by Dredd, because that's what Dredd does. He shoots these bad guys. But then, oh, no, one of the Hershey's survived, and she's out, and maybe she'll get a series of her own one day. I don't know.
If we're doing the writer's job for them, I had another thought, which was that I'll wrap up actually. So this is the last page. They also find out that the guy who did this was, I think he was last seen leaving the Nubis spaceport going to East Meg 2, which is the Soviet Union megacities.
The Sovs.
Yeah, although they might not be Sovs anymore.
I think they've got a Sov princess or something. Remember in the Atlantis arc that happened semi-recently? That was sort of orchestrated by the Sovs. Because and the whole thing with Britsit becoming an ally with the Sovs.
Is East Meg 2 potentially China? Because East Meg 1 could be the Soviet Union.
Because I think that's what happens at the end of the Apocalypse War, is East Meg 1 gets fully nuked.
Yeah.
Dredd kills billions of people by nuking them. And then there's a whole thing where, because the soldiers get sent home and they're where can we go? Our cities have been nuked. And Dredd's East Meg 2's a million miles away, go walk there. Go death walk there.
Not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, I hadn't considered the 1 and 2 angle, so maybe that's...
Well, I don't know. It probably will just be the kind of Russian-coded one.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, now that we've completed the wrap-up, if I was doing the writer's job for them, I would be saying this is clearly an assassin who has targeted and taken out Judge Hershey in a way which could be seen to be natural causes.
Yeah.
Who benefits from this? There is currently another chief judge.
Yeah.
Is it being done so that they can then be promoted to chief judge instead of Hershey?
Well, Hershey was... there is a current chief judge. Yeah. So, he is the chief judge. Hershey wasn't in the way of anything because Hershey left. So.
But when did Hershey come down with the pathogen?
That was a long time ago, because, she's been, hopping around the world.
Was it before or after she...
Oh, are you saying that, this chief judge rose to power by... Well, the chief judge that you see about is, Gary or something. It's, chief judge people person name, and he's got, a nondescript, cartoon face.
He clearly doesn't matter as much as Hershey did.
He's an interim Tory prime minister kind of thing. He's not... He's not like he doesn't look like a character that has a gimmick. And I mean, Hershey's got a bob. You got to give Hershey that.
And also, like, is a heroic character that you might remember from the past.
But, like, I've seen other Chief Judges that have, like, eye patches and a big nose. Like
big capes as well.
The capes are the thing. My thoughts were, when you were speaking there, that, like, the assassin will turn out to be a clone of Hershey. And Hershey will have been killed by Hershey.
That's kind of possible, I guess.
Because they've introduced the, like, clones into the story now.
Speaking of the clones... I don't think I like it very much that they're bringing in some stuff that happened in the magazine to this point in 2000 AD.
You like it being a separate thing where, like...
Kind of, and, like, I know that the magazine exists, and I know that there's other Judge Dredd content in it, and I don't really, if I'm thinking about it, see a reason why it shouldn't matter that something happened in the magazine if it happens to the Judge Dredd characters.
I think that I
just had this reaction, and they're like, oh, that's a name that came up during the Clone Judge's case. Yeah. And I was like, the Clone Judge's case?
Like I was saying, I thought they were going to mention something from, like, the 80s. Yeah. It's like, oh, all right, okay, that's fine.
Because they have brought up the Cursed Child in this prog.
The Judge Child, yeah. They were,
what did I say? The Cursed Child.
That's
Harry Potter.
That is Harry Potter.
The Judge Child, yeah. But, like, that's because Hershey's dead, and that's the story Hershey was originally from.
Mm-hmm. And it involves space, apparently, which I didn't know. I've not read the Judge Child.
They keep calling it the Judge Child quest as well.
Yeah, they went on a mad one. That's fun. I'm interested to see where it goes. Like I say, like I'm not necessarily bought into the sort of reason for doing this story, but the other thing is you were saying about the magazine.
Yeah,
I think they probably think that the 2000 AD audience is so niche.
And they'll be getting both.
They'll be getting both. Like, it's so insular that, like, you're getting the magazine, right? Like, you've seen these stories.
And I guess the other thing is that it probably won't hinder my enjoyment of it that much that I haven't read this story that leads into it.
Like I keep saying, we're a good control case, because we weren't there in the 80s. We're here now. We're just reading, basically, the comic.
We're a strangely casual... like, audience that are making a podcast
We are potentially the most filthy casual to podcast-making people possible right now in terms of making a 2000 AD podcast.
But I also think that there is some merit to that, because, like, I can give you the perspective of, like, I haven't been buying the fucking magazine.
You want to sell fucking comics to, like, TikTok teens that are buying manga? Like,
why is this getting brought? I don't know what this is. Like, it doesn't ruin the story.
As someone who's read a million comics, it can be like, oh, it's just a thing that happened in another comic. Yeah. And the panel itself gives me enough context to be like, all right, clones. Like, I don't need to know.
Yeah.
And if it was like a madder thing, right? If it wasn't just like some clones, if it was some kind of like cool fucking box that like, what the fuck is this? Maybe you'd go find that story. Mm-hmm. So it's, in practice, it's a fine like principle, but we'll see how it shakes out for this story.
Yeah. So you didn't like this then?
I won't be rating it number 1.
Okay.
That I'll give you a little spoiler for my rating at the end. I love the art. PG Holden art, I believe, again.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel as cartoony as last time. You know, like it's the same artist as last issue, but it's a lot darker and.
Well, it's quite dark. The Nubis colony looks a lot more like Mos Eisley to me, a lot more Star Wars. Like domes and desert color schemes.
It's named as a colony. It's like Colony 31.
Yeah.
So that's specifically, I like Megacity 1 colonialism. Like, I like that they're putting colonies out in places and making the universe worse.
If we're talking about the art, there is one thing that I did think of bringing up, which is, you know, this bit where they cut to the lab.
I love that.
Well, it looks like it hasn't been fully coloured in to me.
They're going for the white, sterile, pristine...
That's probably the effect that they're going for, but it does kind of look like they've only coloured in 2 bits.
Well, those bits being like the colour transmission from Dredd and maybe the lips on the judge.
There's like a vat of somewhat brownish liquid in the background, and there's like, I guess the pauldrons on the spacesuit thing she's wearing.
Well, it's like a hazmat suit. I really like that, because this is presumably in the Hall of Justice, and they've got like a bio lab. I like that they're all
to deal with alien pathogens.
Yeah, alien pathogens. I like that they're wearing full suits in the thing that's already presumably hermetically sealed from the rest of the hall.
Well, I mean, you know, you want the scientists to be protecting themselves as well.
I feel like you could do comics where like the thing that they were like looking at would be behind a big glass wall, or like you know, using the tubular hands things that you see in The Simpsons. It's just 2 panels as well. I feel like it conveys, like, because it's like a cutaway, and like it conveys like the Nubis colony is dark and grim, and like the lab is
Justice Lab is
pristine.
bright white. Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily bad. Like, I don't know why I'm calling them out on it.
I mean,
but
you had the thought. That's what this podcast is for.
It's because it's on a page turn is the other thing, and it's such a big difference, and a lot of it is kind of line drawing. So it just was a bit like, did they finish this bit?
Well, the time crunch for making 2CAD is probably pretty cruel.
Yeah, that is probably a good point. I liked it. I like that they're continuing to solve a case.
I don't hate it. I'm interested to see what East Meg brings. There's been a cover reveal for the next prog, and it just looks like they go straight there.
Yeah.
So
far, though, like, I can kind of see why you're saying that you don't rate it, because it's a bit of a, like, we're getting from point A to point B. There's not a single thing in this prog that I'm like, oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Next up, we've got part 2 of Helium Scorched Earth, and this is script by Ian Edgington, art by Disraeli, and letters by Simon Boland. So in this, we're now in the current like time period of Helium. Last time, if you remember, it was a flashback to explain the character's backstory. Robot Popeye, Abraham Lincoln dude. Here we have their ship crashed, which they were referencing at the end of the last one. We see the kind of our heroes at the moment, who I'd kind of forgotten because it was 8 years ago.
Yeah, 8 years since the last story. We should reaffirm that.
I'd kind of forgotten exactly who was on board here. So we've got now older robot Abraham Lincoln, the now, I guess, young adult princess of the Tsar,
Anastasia,
that got murdered in that revolution.
Gunned down by an Uzi.
And some scientist guy.
Some generic scientist man.
They have been shot down in the fog that is like the poisonous gas that covers the world. That's the whole setting thing. They are not on one of the floating cities. They're like right in it amid all the monsters and things.
Their airship went down, and they're now in like a kind of like a poisonous jungle that you might see in a Terry Nation Dalek story. Like it's specifically that. I imagine that's a reference point for these creators.
I have a similarly niche reference point, which is the Blight in the Wheel of Time novels, which is like the area of the land that has been like corrupted by the Dark One escaping his prison. Mm-hmm. So it's
the Dark One.
The Dark One.
That reminds me of Once Upon a Time. I feel like we're going tangents here, but like that is.
I've never seen Once Upon a Time.
It heavily involves the Dark One, which you might get a kick out of if you know a different Dark One.
I think we all know quite a number of Dark Ones, surely. Yeah. Wasn't Ozzy Osbourne the Dark? I don't know. Anyway, he was the Prince of Darkness.
He's someone you would see in 2CAD, so...
Anyway, so I would not have recognised that this was the Scarlet Traces guy from the last issue if you hadn't pointed it out.
I think it is. I've not double checked, but I assume it is.
I assume it is because I definitely would have noticed that from this issue, because everybody here in the Blight is wearing spacesuit helmets that make their skin green, not green, blue. And all of the alien people in Scarlet Traces were blue.
Oh, so were they from... I was going to say, were they from Uranus?
I think they were from Venus.
Venus? Because there was Martians.
There were Martians, but the Martians turned out to not actually be from Mars. They were like an invasive species on Mars as well.
Yeah.
But I think that the refugee aliens were from Venus.
They were from Venus or something. They were like living on Earth and like fighting in the British Army.
And they looked like normal guys who were blue.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of that in this.
I like the art. I mean, I should say from the first couple of pages, it still looks good.
Oh yeah, it's very good color contrast. It looks visually interesting just to look at. Disraeli, strange name, good artist. Mm-hmm. But what actually happens? We have the crew escaping from the ship, and they got a scientist guy.
He's worried about his discs, isn't he?
He's worried about his discs. He's lost some data in the plane crash. Can't remember what the hell that was about.
Something was on it. Like
presumably, it's very important, like espionage information. But he also bigs up like, "Oh, you don't understand. We're in the wilderness now. Like." Yeah, everything here is stronger and faster and more cunning than us. Like, we need to get some weapons or we're going to die. This is my area of expertise. You've been, like, bossing it through all of this, but, like, we're here.
I'm a squishy scientist, and my expertise is survival in the plague lands.
Yeah. Then he freaks out that he's lost his discs, but Abraham Lincoln has apparently got them presumably off panel in the last story.
There's a panel there of him switching the discs with some gentleman's literature.
Yeah.
Like,
which we see later on, like the on the next page, the bad guys are reporting back to the ministry, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, we don't actually have the discs. They got swapped out, and what they've been swapped out with is like CD cases with bikini girls on them, and they say things like men only."
But they're like CD cases, which is one thing. Yeah. But like this is like Victorian turn of the century stuff, so it's like, you know, it's like early like 20th century, like not porn.
I don't know. I think the porn looks very 70s. This seems like what happened was the only thing that Robot Abraham Lincoln had to swap out the important discs with was his stash of porn.
Yeah.
And I have questions about that, given that his body is entirely mechanical.
That's true.
But maybe best not to go into that too much.
Don't linger on that. So this is the other thing I wanted to bring up about this issue, is that like it was like Tsar stuff in the flashback.
Yeah.
But this very much seems to be British stuff.
Well, I think it is, because they talk about the ship going down in the Midlands.
Yeah, in the Midlands.
So I think that this is Britain, but presumably before there was a Tsar of Britain.
Is there a Tsar of Britain in this series, do you remember, from 8 years ago?
I don't really remember. What I remember from Helium 8 years ago is largely the aesthetic.
Yeah. But like what I took from these issues, just like rebuilding it without having read in the previous series, even though the previous series is all free, potentially still, because it was advertised last issue, you can just get it from their website.
Yeah, go and read that. We haven't.
We didn't. It's been a week. Come on. It seems like Britain exists. It's like turn of the century Britain, and they have ministers and the Midlands. There's also like another name of like a British place that's mentioned that I laughed at, but I can't remember the name off the top of my head. So it seems like, was there like Tsar stuff? Is it just turn of the century like world stuff? Like, is there just other country equivalents of countries that exist but they're...
What I likened it to last time was Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah.
What I will liken it to this time is The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Okay.
Because do you know how in that's the whole setting is a sea?
Yeah.
But that's because the settings of previous Legend of Zelda games, you find out later, have been flooded to such an extent that the only things that are above the sea level are like the mountaintops, and that's the islands that you've been going to.
Yeah.
So like it's the setting before the Great War was, you know, could have been anything really. Let's say it was Britain. And then the war was so bad that it covered the entire Earth with this poisonous gas cloud. And only the like mountaintops and the floating cities exist.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that it being in Britain or Russia would necessarily make all that much of a difference.
I just assumed it was going to be like Russian characters doing Russian things, but we have like a minister from the British government doing government things
called Dr. Dial.
He, again, to bring it back to Doctor Who...
Minister for the Office of Information Retrieval.
So it's doing, like, Orwellian stuff. He's saying, like, to the lesser bad guy, do a good job or we'll disappear you and your whole family.
Yep.
This character gives me big The Master vibes from Doctor Who.
Specifically, like, the old The Master, not John Sim.
So, John Sim was Prime Minister as well, so
True.
He did do a little bit of, like, government stuff. Government minister stuff was a part of Doctor Who in the 70s and that. So, like, again, I think this is... I would be surprised if that wasn't references they were taken from this.
To talk you through what's actually going on the page, we've cut from the heroes to the villains. The captain of the ship that shot down the heroes is on a video phone with this Dr. Dial minister, and he's threatening her, go back into the death gas cloud and retrieve those discs, whatever it takes, or else.
The lesser bad guy, the sub bad guy, is like, oh, they died in the cloud. And like the minister's like, for fuck's sake, you need to make sure they're dead. Yeah. Like you need to go get the thing and make sure we have the thing. You can't just leave the thing. Like you can't just this isn't a Bond villain thing. You can't just leave them to die and assume they're dead.
Yeah.
How long have you been at this? Like you need double tap these people, please. Make sure that
confirmed kills only.
Yeah.
Then the call ends and we cut to the minister from Information Retrieval's office. And his secretary walks in.
I love this scene.
His secretary walks in, and their name's Phyllis.
Yeah.
And says basically other people are ready for their meeting, and he just freaks the fuck out at her.
He just goes fucking off the wall, doesn't he?
He's like, not now, Phyllis. Tell them to sodding wait as long as it's sodding takes. And it's like the usual villain screaming at their underlings thing. But then, in fairness to him, he does like the next panel. He's like collecting himself. He's like, "I'm really sorry about that, Phyllis.
Phyllis, I don't know what came over me.
That was absolutely uncalled for."
He said that was unacceptable. And like, there's like that's good, right? That's good writing. And then the last panel of the page is him just reacting to what he's apologized, but he's just like hand in head saying, "Shit." Like, that's really good humanizing,
and also like keeping the villain as being that kind of cartoonish Saturday morning villain.
Well, he's like an Orwellian minister for information that's going to disappear fellow bad guys, and then he's upset that he lost. Like
Phyllis doesn't deserve that.
No, Phyllis
didn't lose those data discs.
No, like Phyllis is doing good work, and like. That might be my favourite page of the prog.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that, but it's definitely up there.
Like I wouldn't necessarily say this is my favourite story in the prog, but that page, topper.
Yeah. And that's the second to last page. We cut back to the heroes, and they're stalking through the undergrowth, and they come across a big mutant pig.
Mutant pig. It's like a boar. It's got tentacles coming out of its head. It's got like tusks that also form into tentacly hand type protrusions. There's little baby boars.
There are little baby boars who are very cute.
Very cute. That panel put me in mind of Miyazaki. And what was it?
Princess Mononoke.
Princess Mononoke with the cursed god.
The cursed god boar who is covered in curse, like tentacle things at the start.
I want to say he's got multiple eyes as well. Like he might have like venom eyes.
Oh, maybe, I don't know.
But,
it's been a while since I saw Princess Mononoke.
I really like that boar. I hope he's a good boy. Like, I hope like the next prog is just them befriending that boar and nothing going wrong.
Well, that would be nice. They'll have to deal with the boar in some way next issue. I think we've probably kind of covered what was cool in the story.
I am surprised that we got as much out of it as we did, because it's kind of two conversations.
Yeah, I suppose so. That might be a bit of a theme.
It's a theme for sure.
Because in Dredd, it was a conversation with the culprit, conversation with the lab, conversation with the culprit. We'll go and have a conversation somewhere else next time. And this time it's a conversation with heroes, conversation with the bad guys, conversation with heroes. Pig.
We were calling out last issue that a good introductory issue 1, Prog 1 thing should be like set up, exposition, but also get a fight in there.
Get a fight in there. Have them do the thing. Like, give me a reason why I'm interested in this comic.
I think Helium, it's got like a boar on the last page. Yeah. It's got like a kind of poisonous thing. It kind of squeaks past.
I think that the Helium does succeed in that. Not necessarily as well as Feral Info did.
No.
But it does, because I think the reason why I'm interested in Helium is because I think the setting is interesting.
It's a cool setting. Like, the more I find out about it from this being my second issue of Helium that I've read.
I have only one thing that I want to call out that we haven't already picked up on, which is that when the captain of the bad guy ship is talking to the minister, the video call starts off with a screen that says "sound only selected."
Yes, very much like in Evangelion. Yeah, I had that in my mind as well when I was reading it. And it's like, it's sound only, and he's like, are you alone? Right, and then it like goes to sound and visuals.
Sound and visuals. We've found enough budget to animate the bad guys on the phone this episode, which they never did in Evangelion.
Oh no, but it's a vibe though. Sound only might be like a callback to like 2001 as well. Like, I assume it's a double
Space Odyssey.
Yeah, like not the prog. Like, but yeah, I think it's like a dual layered, like, we're saving budget here, but also it's a reference to something, so we'll get away with it.
Because the sound-only monoliths look like the monolith from 2000.
Well, the monoliths are definitely a reference, but like, I think there's like sound-only transmissions. Like, the word sound-only might physically appear in that film.
It is weird, because I thought that it saying sound-only here must be a call-out to Evangelion.
That's what I think for this one.
Yeah, because like you don't call it that. Yeah. I don't know what you necessarily would call it, but you never like get a Zoom call that says sound only, do you?
Yeah, it would have his little picture as well. Yeah. Like, it would have like a little like thumbnail of the evil Minister of Information, like maybe just on his holidays or whatever his profile picture is. But yeah. No, I mean, I liked it. We should probably just bash on to the next one though.
Yep. Next up, we have The Devil's Railroad, Part 1. And this is script by Peter Milligan, art by Rufus Dayglow. Colours by Jose... Oh, that's going to give me trouble. Jose Villarrubia.
Sorry, you made a good stab at that. And again, correct us, please.
Yeah. And letters by Jim Campbell again.
The letters
do a lot of work on this magazine. I don't know if they actually... I don't know what it's like being a letterer, but...
I imagine it's either quite intense or not intense, but like there does seem to be, because it's not just like a normal letter, a basic letter for American comics we'd be doing 20 pages or whatever, and it'd all be the same font and like typeface and stuff, but presumably they have to switch between progs and things.
Recap wise, so we open on the Diaspora X167 planets, Earth year 3038.
I'm glad that you called it out, because I didn't read that.
So there's a war going on, there's like bombers bombing Diaspora X167.
There's boomerang-shaped ships in the sky.
Yeah. There's caption boxes that are someone writing to their mother about how they're surviving through the war. And then at the bottom of the page, there's just some shagging.
Just some shagging.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to see just some shagging, because I want to say they've been like not going hard on the shagging recently, because they want to like lead Waynes from the regen into
2000 AD, yeah.
I want to say there's been a definite...
And also, like, certainly where I get the prog from, where I get my 2CAD, it's on the bottom shelf.
It's a
comic.
It's a comic. Like, you want kids to grab it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's semi-tasteful, you know.
It's nothing explicit. So it is a female figure from the waist up, still wearing, like, I guess a robe or a dressing gown or something.
It really looks like a dressing gown.
Clearly in the act of coitus.
Yeah.
The only reason why you can't see her breasts is because they are being covered by her hand and her partner's hand.
Interesting thing to call out about the art. I like the art in this issue. That one panel is very Tank Girl. Like, that face construction is going for the Jamie Hewlett style.
Yeah, well, you say Tank Girl, I was immediately reminded of Gorillaz.
Gorillaz is the same thing.
I think it's the same guy. Artist.
It's like she looks like a Gorillaz character. They look less like Gorillaz characters on the other panels, but because it's a profile shot, you can see that distinctive face. She also has Princess Leia hair.
Oh yeah, so she does.
And like a face mask and like...
I think that's face paint.
It looks like face...
It's either face paint... It's like she's got Pikachu cheeks.
She
and
looks
like a blue top half of her face.
She kind of looks like a cross between a superhero and a stereotypical housewife from like the 40s through
with
80s.
The rollers in her hair.
Yeah.
So they're having sex during bombing, which, like, initially I was like, I get that, like, desperate times, whatever. They then later reveal that there is a shelter that they could be going to, so I'm less accepting of it now.
The guy is like, he doesn't like it or something, he doesn't feel right about the shelter or something.
I should probably remember what these people are called. So he calls her his sweet pickle, which was one of the first things that put me off about him.
Well, he comes across, it feels very Clockwork Orange, like the dialogue and the sort of like this sort of tone of at least the male character, kind of manic.
She is called Constance, and I don't think I care enough about the guy to read through the comic to work out who he is. Oh, he's called Palamon? Palamon and Constance.
The way I treat it is that, like, I'll learn their names as I learn their names. Like, if I keep reading the comic and if he does cool stuff, and like it's like produced to me, like if the comic keeps telling me his name, I'll learn it that way.
A thing which I'm only just noticing now about Palamon is that the hand that he was not touching Constance's breast with is a robot hand.
Yeah.
And I like robot hands, they're a cool thing.
This world building in this comic, the little details like robot hands.
If you're going to be praising the world building, we might not be agreeing.
Well, it's maybe not like world building, but like what's it called when it's like the art's doing the world building, or like the sort of
visual storytelling?
The visual storytelling, like the like little because like her potential face mask looks cool. It makes you ask questions. We'll get to it on other pages, but there seems to be like a big religious element to the culture.
Yes. So they're calling out things about the sacred algorithms.
You get one of those, right?
Yeah.
Like when they mentioned the sacred algorithms, I had a laugh and I was like, haha, algorithms, it's the future or whatever. And then I think they do it 2 or 3 more times, and I'm like, every time it's diminishing.
Yeah.
It's just not as like...
Unless, like, the story is going to engage with there being sacred algorithms, unless that's going to be important to the events of the story.
I'm less on that, like, because it can just be like a fun, like, world building thing, or like sort of tone setting thing. But like, if you're going to keep hitting it, like if you're going to keep mentioning the algorithm, then yeah, absolutely, it needs to be a factor.
I feel like there's definitely a good story that you could do with a sacred algorithm if it's like a society of YouTubers. You know,
I'm surprised there's not much more YouTuber content in 2CAD. Like it seems like that's fertile ground for like future shocks.
There hasn't even really been a future shock thing about it.
No, you could easily do like a an Alan Partridge like character who is a YouTuber, but of a YouTuber generation, who gets his own series and is just a shithead. It seems like that's ground to do stuff.
I'm putting off describing what actually goes on in the Devil's Railroad because I don't like it very much.
Really?
Yeah. So after the sex panel, I was going to call it a sex scene. It's really just one panel.
Wow.
Then they're cuddling, and Constance reveals to him that they should go to the bomb shelter actually because she's pregnant.
Preggers.
And I don't like it. Kind of comes off as like, oh, like just now.
Yeah.
But
she's known for like a day or a week.
Yeah, she says like I've known for sure all day today. Yeah. But I'm only bringing up now that we should go to the bomb shelter
as the bombs are exploding in our house.
Yeah, well, yes. Like she says, we should probably go to the bomb shelter. The very second before, what looks like a plane crashes through their room.
It's half-page splash of a panel. It's a lot of destruction and death. It's got a huge kaboom, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of like spelled out sound effects in comics anymore.
A lot of people don't like draw their own, like, because this will be drawn on presumably on the panel, so like that's a separate kind of thing. Going from that page to the next, right? Because it looks like it focuses on the guy, Palamon, and it looked like the mum character.
You mean Constance?
Constance. It looks like
because there is also a mum later.
We'll get to the mum. It looks like Constance had exploded. And I was like, I'm not really up for that then, because she had the cooler character design.
Well, in particular, like the part of the room that has been exploded is the part that Palamon was closer to, and Palamon's there and Constance isn't.
Yeah.
And because like the next panel after the kaboom is like just the wreckage, and he's looking around, he's shouting, he's looking for her, and then turns out she's just somewhere a bit off to the side.
Yeah, it looks like she gets vaporized, but she's just sort of in another room.
They kind of try and explain it as being like, well, because I now value my life because of the life of my child.
I have survival instincts now.
I ran away from that explosion, and apparently you didn't see me do that in the same time. It would have. It doesn't make much sense.
It was a little bit messy, but I'm rolling with it at this stage.
Then their plan is to go and get money from Palamon's parents so that they can go on the Devil's Railroad and get to Earth. Because this is clearly a refugee story, because they're fleeing from a war, going to Earth, or, the USA, basically, is what I'm reading it as. Because the reason why they want to do that is because she's pregnant, and if her baby is born on Earth, it'll be an Earth citizen with all the rights of that.
Full Earth citizens, right? I didn't read the caption at the start, so I was like, are they going to, like, present-day Earth? Or is it, like... Is it Battlestar Galactica series, whatever, where they get to present-day Earth and they're future aliens, but Earth is just normal Earth? But no, you're saying it's like 3,000 and whatever.
Yeah, and I think they did say that like the diaspora is constantly at war, but like the core worlds aren't, or something like that.
So this page, right, where they say we're going to go to the parents and ask for money to do the plot. We're going to do the plot, which is the plot revealed as we're going to go as refugees to Earth.
Yeah.
And I was like...
And the way that you get to Earth is by going through a series of dangerous transit things, which is what is called the Devil's Railroad.
Which could be an episode-by-episode, episodic thing, which I'm into. But when they revealed that was the plot, I was like, so... And this could be quite unfair, because it might not be the way it's going, but the setup seems very Saga.
Okay.
Do you remember Saga?
I do remember Saga.
Because like they're having a baby, they're aliens, they're potentially... I don't know if they're necessarily wanted, but like they aren't.
Did they have the baby at the start of Saga?
The first thing that happens in Saga is they have the baby. So like it's not quite Saga, but like it gave me big Saga vibes. It felt very Saga-ish.
And Saga was extremely popular at the
time. Saga was very extremely popular. Maybe it's not going to go that way, and maybe it's unfair to bring up the comparison, but like that is immediately what sprung to mind whilst reading those pages. Do you have anything to say about asking for money off the mum and dad? Because I like the mum and dad designs a lot.
One of them's got a Geordie LaForge visor, the mum does.
Mm-hmm. The dad and the son are wearing the same hat, so it seems to be like a cultural thing.
Yeah, like you say, visual storytelling, there are a few nods to there's more culture here than we're necessarily talking through.
Your whole point as well about it being like a refugee story, I think is very, I don't know what the word is, but like important. Mm-hmm. Toucan should be like a blistering political thing.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily always have that like hot takes, but like here's a refugee story. They're sort of coded Ukrainian in one of those panels because their little hat is blue and yellow.
That is true, and the mum is wearing a big like parka coat because it's presumably cold in the war-torn area that they're fleeing.
Like just looking at this, this could be a comic about the war in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Like if you didn't read the panels, you didn't see it was alien stuff. Like it's very like the visuals.
Yeah, I'm pro this. I'm pro there being a story about like refugees being the hero trying to get to safety. That is a great political message and all that.
Like if they eventually get to Earth and it's like Tory Earth, where like
I just wish I enjoyed the comic.
what was it that you weren't enjoying about it?
Well,
Really?
let's finish with the wrap up, because they do get the money from his parents to go on the Devil's Railroad, and he's like writing back saying like, "Oh, it's so luxurious here," and then you see the inside of the ship that they're on, and it's like cramped.
Again, very real world like stuff right there.
And then the last thing that happens is that when they start approaching the next leg of the journey, Constance just starts inflating, like an inflation fetish.
I mean, it might be the writer's barely contained fetish.
It isn't necessarily, but like there are like gas lines on the outside of her swelling belly that make it also look like it might be a fart fetish thing.
I thought I took those as like veins or like things inside.
That's also kind of gross.
If you recolored that panel, it looks like a watermelon. It has like watermelon stripes on it.
Yeah. And like this is the stinger, so like my reaction of what the fuck is this is like kind of the correct. That's what they're going for. You're supposed to be wondering what the fuck is going on here.
What's coming next?
But like it's just so random and weird, and the whole comic is kind of that.
From the page one with the shagging, but more specifically, the art style being Gorillaz inspired, Jamie Hill inspired. I assumed this was going to be like a gag strip, because like 2000 AD has like a history of them from the 90s. That's where like the Tank Girl, he did stuff for 2000 AD and like 2000 AD adjacent stuff. So like I thought they were going to do more of a comedy thing, but you read it and it's, well, this is real shit.
Yeah, it's pretty serious.
Yeah, it's not like a comedy like
apart from. But it's like tonally inconsistent within itself, because it is a serious story that could be taken very seriously, has like a serious thing to say. But also we're banging on about the sacred algorithms.
I think that's like a humanizing thing, though. Like serious plot, but like the people are likable, and because like sagas like that where it's, you know, there's bad things happening, but there's TV head people, and so what? So you just didn't like the tonal mismatch?
I didn't like the tonal mismatch. I didn't like the characters very much. The whole thing where like. Because, for one thing, Constance runs away in that explosion, and then Philemon's like, "Oh, you just ran away," and she's like, "Well, yeah, because I got a baby now." And then, like, Palamon is like, "Oh, so just because you got a baby, like, you just leave me to die then?"
Yeah, he didn't seem very likable at all.
No, like, kind of fuck off, dude. Like, you should not have been there in the first place, because you have a bomb shelter to go to, and like that's maybe like just one thing that's sticking in my brain.
That does happen with comics, where like a character does a thing early on, and you're like, no. Go to jail.
Yeah.
I kind of took it as like an alien kind of thing. Like they're not necessarily humans. They don't necessarily like it's sort of a tonal thing where like they're not necessarily doing the things you would expect. But it depends how it carries on, doesn't it? Like
absolutely, yes, it very much does depend how it carries on. And like this story as a whole might be a very good one, and I'm just nitpicking on.
You could say that that's like they're young shitheads, and they're like, oh, like they're self-centered, but like they get a baby, and it like, you know.
Is the making of them.
Yeah, like that's like a standard kind of thing.
Yeah, quite possibly. But I didn't like any of the characters in this one. I did like the art though. Like I feel like I'm being very negative, and I think that although there is that weird inflation bit, like overall,
all comics have an inflation bit at some point.
There was one last Prog, actually.
Who got inflated last Prog?
The guy in Feral and Foe.
Oh yeah, of course he exploded though.
He did explode,
which is a separate but related fetish. I like this. I was surprised that it wasn't a thriller. Like, it gave me the sort of tone of a thriller. And like when I was reading Targs, it's just a new story start, and I was like, oh, interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see where it goes, and like if it carries on the refugee aesthetic, which sounds bad. It sounds bad to put it that way, but like, you know, they're clearly telling a metaphor. It's clearly like a real world thing that's happening, and there should. That's a place. This is the place where it should be. Like you're a kid and you're picking up a comic off the shelf for the first time, and you're getting politics
and also sex.
That is weird, and it was semi-tastefully done, like I was saying at the start, but still, it didn't have to be there. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's enough for Devil's Railroad, and now from one banger to another.
Your favourite story in the Prog?
Story, the fall of fucking Deadworld. I'll tell you what's dead is my excitement.
Oh my god. We're not making any friends. We should just call out the creatives.
Yeah,
let them know that you hate them.
So, this is Fall of Deadworld Retribution Part 1, script by Keck W.
Keck W.
Is that anything to do with, like, crypto-fascists on 4chan saying kek.
Do they say kek?
Yeah, there's like a flag called the Kekistan flag that they made up that is now a recognised hate symbol.
Interesting. I believe kek is active on Twitter, so if you hear this kek, write in.
I would imagine KekW that you probably started being KekW long before that
before
whole
4chan
thing happened.
yeah.
But I hope that's the case. Anyway, sorry about that. Art by Dave Kendall and letters by Simon Boland. So, Deadworld. Deadworld is where the Dark Judges are from. We should probably go into a little bit of the background here. So, there are 4 characters called the Dark Judges who come from an alternate reality that is like Dredd's reality, and they're villains in a very famous story that I haven't read.
I've read it. It's pretty good.
I'm sure it is.
It involves boing.
They keep boing?
Yeah, the miracle substance boing.
Oh yeah, it's bouncy and like there's like a whole like murder sport associated with
the outlaw, I believe. Boing. But there's like a spray, like instant boing. Yeah. And that's what resolves the Dark Judges initially. That's the first Judge Death appearance.
They should really bring back like the kind of silly sci-fi stuff like boing.
I really like it when it happens. Like, you know, I don't think there was enough boing in that Dredd story. Like,
no, I would kind of agree.
There's not enough boing in this story. Like,
I also remember like old Dredd stories that I read. Again, like you know,
stuff. Let's talk about anything other than
stuff that Mom had like from back in like before the 90s anyway. Yeah. Like that I've read some issues of, and there was like a whole thing where there was a craze for people to look as ugly as possible, and there were competitions to be as fat as you could be, and like fat people had like little wheels that you could put.
It was very much
to lift your fat up off the ground.
You still get them. You still see them about.
Not that much, though.
No, I'd say it's maybe a more problematic element of 2018.
Yes, certainly looking back, like you wouldn't necessarily do exactly that part now.
But that was a big thing in early Judge Dredd, is the fads of Mega City 1, because everybody's unemployed. There's no employment.
Yep.
And like everybody's doing these mad fads to like
far more people in Mega City 1 than there are jobs.
Yeah. And there's robots and says
you're immediately in like the upper classes if you have any job.
That's sort of fluctuated over the years because there's been so many apocalypse level events.
Where I was going to go with that is that like there's less of that kind of thing now with like fads that come from like the idle population. And I think that there is a very good reason why that would be in the fiction of the comic, because was it Chaos Day?
They keep banging on about Chaos Day.
Chaos Day was the one that I was reading at the time, and like they called out that like I can't remember if it was like 50% or like 90% of the whole population died.
Well, there was that.
And because it's Mega City 1, that's still a lot of people. So they just kept going.
Built over the corpses.
Yeah.
I mean, there was that whole apocalypse war where nuclear war literally happened.
Yeah, that was longer ago, though.
Still, though. Yeah. That was still within living memory that they've rebuilt from.
Chaos Day was presumably worse for Mega City 1, though.
I love when they get worse. When it's like, we'll start with a nuclear apocalypse, like pre-story, because it's already post-apocalyptic. And then we'll have a nuclear... Like,
I think Chaos Day might have been zombies. I'm not sure though.
There's that zombie thing from the 90s, Judgment Day, which is...
Anyway, speaking of zombies, there's this other universe.
Neatly into.
Circling back. Yeah. There's this other universe where there's like it's like a mirror image of the Dredd world, so they have judges and things went wrong there, and 4 guys became extremely powerful psychic entities who are like undead, and there's Judge Death, there's Judge Fire, there's Judge Fear.
Mortis?
And also Judge Mortis, who's different from Judge Death.
Yeah. He's got like a cow head or something, like a...
And at varying times, they have broken through reality to Judge Dredd's reality and caused problems.
The impetus is that they view all life as a crime.
All life's a crime, and they've killed literally everybody in their own dimension. So they have to go to other universes to continue punishing people for being alive.
It's like it's the Judge Dredd problem where like the villains in Judge Dredd are just worse fascists.
Yeah.
Like Dredd's already a fascist, so how do we put him against this guy that hates all life and will kill everyone?
And also is just a judge who looks even more evil, and like he's got like a skeletal eagle instead of the big golden eagle pauldron, and like it's a different take on the same helmet, but with like bone bits and stuff.
He's got like a kind of portcullis instead of a visor.
They keep doing the Dark Judges again, and I've never read a redoing of the Dark Judges where like I know what's going on or have thought it was very good. It's weird that they're ghosts. They possess people a lot.
They do, yeah. That's a whole thing that they do. They possess them and like take them over. Like they turn like they're like sort of Agent Smiths, but instead of turning into like Hugo Weaving, you turn into a Skelly Man.
Yeah. But the story Fall of Deadworld is the prequel to that. It's like, how did their universe get that bad? And
I still don't know because I haven't read the start of it.
I still don't know either, Craig. And I've been reading multiple strips of this for about as long as I've been getting the magazine.
My experience with Deadworld. So I didn't get the start of it. I believe I've got like old progs that I got.
I haven't got the start of it either because I have no idea when it started. It might have been millennia ago.
I've read ones in recent progs within the last 2 years run where it's been episodic adventures of the Dark Judges chilling on Deadworld as it fell.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot more than this.
So this is following a guy called Judge Fairfax, who has been the protagonist of... I say it's following, it doesn't follow him anywhere.
Yeah.
He has been the protagonist of the Fall of Deadworld stories before. As you said, they did take a couple of, like, just looks at individual short stories.
I enjoyed those short stories a lot.
Yeah. What's the recap here?
So they have a conversation. There's Judge Fairfax and his boys. He's got like a team.
So previous to this, and in previous stories, there's been like a family that Judge Fairfax has been going around with. He saved like a kid who is called Jess Childs. So is it the Judge Child?
Yeah.
Is it like a self-referencing thing within a self-referencing thing?
Again.
And they're both referencing things that I didn't read because they happened in the 80s. Anyway.
That story... That's one panel, right? Mm-hmm. This whole story is a reference to it's like a catch up to.
Yeah,
it's a catch up, but not a good one. We were talking about there's no fight.
Well, you remember how you were saying that the previous two strips, the first two strips were like two conversations.
Yeah.
This is one conversation.
One conversation.
This is a group of people standing in a room.
It might have pathos for people that are super into Fall of Deadworld because there seems to be there's is he a mutant kid?
I can't remember. So the other thing is that there's this concept called the dead fluids.
I love the dead fluids. I'm never going to say anything bad about the dead fluids.
I'm not sure what the dead fluids are, but they seem to be the method by which like zombie things happen.
Yeah.
And if you get the dead fluids in you, you start becoming an undead type of thing.
Yeah. And the dead fluids are key to resurrecting the Dark Judges whenever they die and have to get put into a new body.
Over the course of stories in Fall of Deadworld, multiple characters have been infected with dead fluids and been made into slightly zombie-ish looking versions of themselves. This kid here, I don't know if he was originally a mutant. He does say something about everybody else treated him as a monster, but Jess Child didn't. Which is weird because he's clearly undead coded. He's got the sunken eyes and the pale skin pallor thing.
I think that's an art style thing because everybody does.
That's the other thing. Yeah. If it's all about fighting against the zombie menace, make it easy to tell who's a zombie.
But that's the thing. It's Deadworld, and it's the dramatic irony thing of we know all these characters fail and or die because this is in the past, and we know every single person on this planet is dead. Fairfax
has been gotten with the dead fluids, presumably in the last story. He's acting more aggressively to the rest of the guys than he was before. So, the kid's calling him out on being selfish, and he's like, I'll just slap you.
Also, there seems to be a Native American in the party that he's, very racist to.
Yeah, and there's also, I guess a psychic who's got an eye in his forehead.
He looks like a psyker from Warhammer 40k.
And he's your self-hatred, but you're shouting at him because Fairfax is shouting at me. You're shouting at a mirror because you're also, falling into, darkness or whatever.
At some point, that psychic character calls out that we are our own boogeymen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but also... all of the zombies in the world.
Absolutely.
I get your point, but there are ghouls out there.
There are ghouls, and
you yourself are I get what they're trying to go for with that bit of the conversation, but it didn't land for me at all.
No. Does anything resolve in this?
Well, I think their Fairfax doesn't want to go get Jess Child, right? Is that?
Yeah.
But then the kid's like, "You're a dick. Let's go get Jess Child," and eventually he's like, all right.
Things that I will praise this for. Mm-hmm. The actual artwork is very good.
It's very beautiful.
It's depicting gross things in a very technically proficient way.
It looks like an oil painting as well.
It does look like an oil painting. And the character designs themselves are good. The kid who might be a mutant or just a zombie has a t-shirt that says the word agent, and then it's got the fruit and orange on it with sunglasses on.
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange. The chemical warfare thing that they deployed in Vietnam.
I was going to say, was it Vietnam?
So also, chemical warfare, Deadworld, that whole connection there, the dead fluids.
The orange on the Agent Orange top has some sunglasses on him, so he's the cool one of the fruit gang.
But it's, I was kind of not looking forward to it in the first place because I've never read a Deadworld story that I've not been infuriated by.
I didn't like this, but I was laughing all the way through because I was like, oh god, Michael's going to have so much to... either so much or nothing at all to talk about on the Prog Slog.
Well, that's the thing. There's nothing to talk about here. Literally. Nothing happened.
This one falls into the traps of, it's a setup issue. It's a part
It's a setup issue, but, they don't even really set anything up.
No, they don't go anywhere. They just decide to do a thing they could have decided to do off panel, basically.
And that could have been one page of 5 that they've got.
It's character work. They're trying to get was it Fairfax round to go save a person.
Yeah, but to some extent, why do you need this fucker? I don't know. It annoys me crazy.
I have read Fall of Deadworld stuff in the past that I liked. Like I was saying, mainly the episodic stuff. So going into this, I didn't necessarily know what to expect because I hadn't followed these characters at all. Yeah. So these were all new to me, and as a new reader, I don't like Judge Fairfax because there's being an anti-hero, and then there's being
being a dick, who's arguing against progressing the plot.
Progressing the plot because it definitely feels like he's just spinning these wheels for an issue. It doesn't.
He's like, no, I don't want to go and save the person that we need to save. Actually, I'll just threaten to slap you instead.
Threaten to slap you, and that panel where the kid's like, what, you're going to slap me? And I'm like, yeah, a normal judge would. And he's like an evil universe, Earth 3 judge who's also a zombie man.
But he says, let's roll at the end, so I guess they'll do something next week.
If there's action next week, I can excuse this one a little bit, but it depends. It depends, really. Because I can accept it as set up. I just need to see something happen.
Yeah. For sure. Final comic in the prog is Feral and Foe, Bad Godsbury, Part 2.
I'm reading it as Godesburg. Because they go to Gods.
No, that's not Godsbury.
Yeah,
that's an entire dyslexia moment on my part. Anyway, the script is by Dan Abnett, the art is by Richard Elson, and the letters are by Jim Campbell. So, this is the follow-up to, they went to, I think I was referring to it as Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And
it's like a castle, they keep calling it a citadel. It's a citadel, it's a town, they've gone to a town.
It's a town, but it's a town that's well defended because that's their seat of high magical understanding. Mm-hmm. The guy who popped his head out at the end of the last prog was, he's saying that he is Peter the Porter.
I'm Peter the Porter. He's got big prospector energy.
Yeah. And he's the caretaker. Yeah. And they're saying we're here to get this Iron Golem examined. And he's like, what, you're not here to save us from the quest. The quest? I kind of assumed when a bunch of heavily armoured adventurer types turned up, you were here to deal with all of the monsters that are running around.
And then they take to that well. The character, the Jenny Joyce character, who I still feel is very coded as Jenny Joyce, is just immediately is oh, you've got problems, Peter the Porter. Yeah. I'm declaring martial law.
Martial lore.
The puns are great.
Why not insert a pun, even if it doesn't really make sense?
No.
And then all of the foe taker guys, the previously bad guys are oh, she's fucking loving this.
I really like the interaction between the foe takers and the wretch finders or whatever they're called, because the new orc guy is oh, she's fucking like that, she's a real job's worth, and he's doesn't have any reason to be ingratiated into the party,
no.
But he's talking because they're all monsters together, and he's oh, it's this fucking human, jumping at the chance to put people in martial law.
Yeah. So they decide that they're going to go and deal with the problems that are happening around Godsburg, and then they split up and look for clues.
They do split up and look for clues.
So we get the guy who's a Drakekin or a Draconatal, was it?
Draconatal. He's the Dragonborn.
Yeah. He pairs up with the swordswoman with chainmail hair, and they go and have a bit of a look around. They find the High Priest Wonderkammer, and it's a big fantasy door.
Yeah,
and they're having a bit of chat about the it's the Draco Neatle, who is like a war mage or something, is like, oh, I know what that thing is. It's the Wonder Cammer, and then
She's basically like, you fucking nerd.
yeah, and he's like, are you seriously making fun of me for knowing something, for having read a book?
I've read one book.
Then we've got Bode, the wizard, is hanging around with the orc guy, who I didn't notice. He's got a massive gun.
Yes, well, at one point I had to reread those pages because they're going into the depths and like they're like lock and load, boys. And I was like, lock and load?
Yeah.
What do you mean lock and load? And then like, no, he does have like a big flintlock pistol-y blunderbuss type thing.
And they get hit by a D&D ass trap, or at least it might not be a trap. It might just be getting shot by arrows. But it looks to me, when I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, did they like trigger a tripwire?
I guess.
And then a bunch of arrows shot at them.
The specific reference they're calling out is like Warcraft, or is it World of Warcraft? Yeah, because Bode keeps calling this big guy the tank.
He does say the tank is down.
The tank is down.
Yeah.
Like I guess it's less a D&D retelling of someone's party and more like it's coming from that sort of MM.
I mean, people in D&D call fighters and paladins tanks. It's definitely been like infected from.
Yeah. There's definitely cross spread there, but like. It puts me in mind more of the online stuff than because it's everything. It's a mix of everything. They get trapped, and the guy's like, "No, I'm fine." Like,
the armor blocked the worst of it.
He calls it something like something vest. Like he's got like a fun like he's got an piece of equipment on. He's like, "Oh, the thing blocked the worst of it."
The rune vest.
The rune vest. I like that. I like
definitely makes me think of Samurai Jack.
Yes, magic runes, laddie.
The Scotsman's sword doesn't get shattered by Samurai Jack because it's got magic runes.
Samurai Jack would be an amazing 2CAD comic.
Oh, absolutely would have fitted right in. Yeah. And then we see that the place is overtaken by what looks kind of like goblins, but they're like multi-armed spider goblins, I guess.
They're called out as koboldkin or something.
Yeah, koboldikin, and they're swarming.
So that makes me think about kobolds.
Yep, who are a thing in D&D. Although, actually, this is another thing where you're like, is it more Warhammer? Or not Warhammer, Warcraft.
Yeah.
Because I believe that kobolds exist in Warcraft, but they're like dog guys instead of little dragon guys.
These have, the kind of same vibe as Skaven as well from Warhammer, but like you say, they're sort of spider goblins.
And of course, this is Dan Abnett, who does write all of those Warhammer 40k books.
Yeah, exactly. So. I mean, it's a big mishmash of everything, but when you didn't have to call them koboldkin.
No.
So like you're putting the thoughts in our brain.
And that's it. It's only 4 pages?
4 or 5 pages. It goes by quite fast. Well, it goes by quite fast.
There's a lot of artwork. There's a lot of splash pages.
It goes by quite fast how we're recapping it, but like there's a lot of like chat and like banter, and that's most of the comic. There's a lot of gags, a lot of sort of wordplay, and a lot of puns.
But it doesn't necessarily have the meat to it that it did last prog.
No, I think it had more pages last prog. This one, though, I'm perfectly happy with. I enjoyed it. It has not necessarily a fight, but it has things happening to the characters.
I think that this was, in terms of like just the most fun I had reading it, I think this was the most fun story this prog.
Yeah, I would not argue with it at all.
Even though we probably aren't spending very long talking about it.
I mean, there's a whole bit where like the orc guy is on Bode's case for like whining and stuff, and he's like, "Be professional, like you're a wretch finder or whatever. We're gonna go kill 5 rats." Like,
why do we have to go to the cellars? Shut up.
Yeah. It's a good dynamic, and I kind of felt, I don't know, because like I was saying at the start, I liked that he was chatting to them and like and that kind of felt maybe not integrated with that because he was against them in that case. But
I think that people that don't play D&D might think that stands out as like the wrong tone, because I think that they'd probably think like, oh, it's like a fantasy world, shouldn't everybody be like these and thous and it'll be really serious like the Lord of the Rings films? But if you've ever played D&D, you know that people just chat shit around the table.
Yeah, well, this is very much like their D&D characters playing a game, like D&D players playing characters, and like it's enhanced because they say feck, say feck a lot, and tank and like terms like that, because like why would they know what a tank is?
And
like,
get into the whole conversation about like, so if you're a Draco Neatle, was it your mum that was a dragon? Yeah. But
like I like Feral and Flow a lot. I like the setup. I like the world. I like how it's just an encounter. Like it's just they get there. There's a trap. And then
there's a fight.
Then there's like literally, it could say the next time on could say roll for initiative.
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, it says, next prog, swarm spots, which they're fighting a swarm.
Just fighting a swarm, man. Just do an AoE attack, you'll be laughing.
Yeah. No, go on.
No. All I was going to say is if we've finished with Feral and Foe, we've got one thing left to cover in the prog.
Yeah, well, I was also going to say, before we do the rankings, do you want to talk about the letters page?
I read the letters so you don't have to.
Okay.
Because I know you don't read the letters. It's mainly praise.
I did read the letters this time because I'm doing a podcast about it now.
Is there anything that you want to pick out?
Nothing in particular. There's a lot of mentions about how good Azimuth is, which I think we both agree with.
Both agree.
There is some talk about how great Sinister Dexter has been as an ongoing story since, I think they call it 1995.
95, and was it like a 25th anniversary thing?
And how it's been like a big change, and like how like he really wanted it to go back to being like an episodic, like
gun sharks doing shark things.
Two guys going around like doing mob hit jobs or something, which is I think exactly what we were saying. Yeah, it used to be that, and it was kind of bad.
There's a guy that calls out that download might be as bad or like Azimuth itself.
Your point. Yeah.
That like there's nothing actually wrong with Azimuth because you never die.
Yeah.
And specifically you can be whatever body you want, which, I think he was like protecting himself from some blowback there, but I want to think he was saying the writer was saying trans rights.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. So like that was a good letter. Mainly it's just all positive stuff about the recent stories, which I think you should probably do. Because like I've seen Toucan print negative letters, which is morally correct, but maybe not the thing to do to promote your comic.
Yeah, not much, although you've already bought the comic at that point, presumably.
Yeah, but like you don't want to like be platforming people that are trying to like take down your
So
thing.
you're saying that they shouldn't promote our podcast because I'll just complain about Deadworld.
Yes. But also please give us money or like comics, I don't know. Also, the thing I'd like to see Tharg get more snippy with people. I know these were positive things, but Tharg's responses are mainly just shilling for things that are coming out. It's like, oh, you like that thing? Well, it's back here. Because he calls out Azimuth, it's coming back for the Christmas prog.
Yeah.
So, which is good, like that's good little, like, you find out when things are happening. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, they did tell us at the end of the Azimuth when it would be back, but they did so in terms of, like, what prog number it'll be.
But now we know it's the Christmas prog coming up at the start of December. The other thing is, like, I want more character from Tharg in his responses. Because like he is positive and it is chilling, and I feel like you could do that in a way that isn't necessarily just here's this product, go buy this product, or wait for this issue. You want it to be more in the voice of Tharg than in the voice of the editor-in-chief of 2000 AD. Yeah, and I don't know how you would do that because, like I say, you shouldn't print negative ones, and you could probably be sniffier to negative ones, but like it doesn't feel like much content, I guess, from Tharg. I feel like there should be some good shitty things like Tharg says about paper cups, or you're obsessed with him eating paper cups. I don't even know if he mentions his mighty organ in any of his responses. Like he might not even say the word Zarjaz. Yeah. The front cover of this prog says squirting, however it's said. He might actually use the word Zarjaz in every single reply. Not quite everyone. We should get into writing letters to Toucan, because the letter of the week wins a trade. I did notice that when I was reading the letters page for the first time, possibly ever. We could be like, we've started a podcast, give us a thing. Yeah, I don't know, maybe. If you're listening to this 2000. Tharg, if you're listening, we've got some pitches for you, and also, I don't know, promote us. Maybe send me like the trade paperback of the Dark Judges storyline, so I can have some context for anything that happens. I've got some of that. I've got a little paperback of it if you want it, and get you through that. And then it's just an ad on the back for Terror Tales, or whatever it's called. Yep, same thing that Tharg was calling out at the start of the comic. Right, it's your turn to do your rankings. Ooh, first. Right. Let me think, because this is a difficult one. Yeah, I think, I'm kind of cutting in front of you here, I think this was kind of a lower quality prog overall. Lower energy. Yeah. Lower energy. I would say Feral Info, number one, with a bullet. Mm-hmm. Absolutely the best thing. And then maybe Dredd. I feel like every time, the last two times I went on about Dredd being not good and then like ranking it high. Well, that's the thing. Dredd has high expectations. Yeah. Because it is usually the best thing. It's what you're buying the comic for. Or if it's not the best thing, it's the second best thing. It's the flagship. You want it to be good. I'm going to say Feral Info, Dredd, because I like the art. There's stuff I did like about it. Helium, The Devil's Railroad, which I would say they were kind of equal in terms of my liking them. And then definitely Deadworld last. Yeah. Dead last. Dead last.
I mostly agree. I would put Dredd above Feral and Foe simply because simply because I thought Feral and Foe was a bit short.
Okay.
And like I said, I think overall I probably had the most fun with it, but I like the detective story aspect of Dredd. I like the little characterization on the first page.
I mean, that first page is spectacular.
And it's a nice little splash page. You don't get a lot of splash pages in 2000 AD.
No, it's a good use of one as well, because usually I want them to use every panel.
But Dredd, then Feral and Foe, then Helium. Helium was still good, even though it was like a little bit getting from point A to point B. Then if I could put a massive like chasm of like empty places between those three and the other two, I probably would.
Okay.
And I definitely think that Railroad was better than Deadworld, but I didn't like either of them very much at all.
I'm interested to see where like the hook, not necessarily the inflation hook, but like the story of Devil's Railroad seems like it could go fun places. It could be a cool space thing. It could be a good anti-Tory thing when they get to Earth.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. But I mean, just based on that issue, I can understand. I can understand that. And then Deadworld at the very bottom.
The problem is that I have history with Deadworld. I've been disappointed by Deadworld multiple times. I've got no history with Devil's Railroad. It might get very good next issue. It might not. I don't know.
We did last time we talked about this.
Should Deadworld have gotten the cover?
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this, and I wanted to be rude and just be like, "Of course not! It was terrible."
Yeah.
But it is a returning. It's one of two new stories in the prog. And you were saying, is it because it's October, so it's Halloween month?
Halloween. I can imagine that they held it back to October for this.
I would and also this is like a returning story rather than Devil's Railroad being new, so there might be people other than me who are very excited about it coming back.
Yeah.
I think that they should maybe have held off until it was closer to Halloween to do this cover. I would probably have given it to Devil's Railroad.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen a Devil, because maybe it definitely doesn't get one next week because I've seen next week's cover. But I'd love to see what a cover for Devil's Railroad looks like, and it's cartoony, and it's maybe it's a lot more younger skewing the art style.
Yep,
like more like teen orientated than other artists, because like this is like an oil painting of it. Like maybe teens will look at this and think it's cool, but like
the counter argument is that even I was saying the art looks good on Deadworld.
Yeah, so like, the art's great. Like nothing wrong with the image in that, but like
also Fairfax looks a bit like Judge Dredd. So you might get the casuals being like, "Oh, is that Judge Dredd magazine? I'll get that."
Oh yeah, and like I guess it does deserve the cover.
It doesn't not deserve the cover.
It's not necessarily a lying cover either. Yeah. Like it is Judge Fairfax. He doesn't do any of this stancing, but you know that's a mild lie. That's not like a traditional lying cover.
I would have given it to Devil's Railroad because it's a new ongoing story, and even if you don't have super high hopes for it, like it's a new thing. That's the selling point. Like show it off. It'll never be the first issue of that ever again.
Yeah, exactly. And like I feel like that's the case a lot of times for like, does this deserve the cover? If it's a new thing, if it's a new thing, then it should get the cover. And like, who knows how many like issues there'll be of it? Like, it might not get a lot of chances to get the cover. So yeah, that's really all I wanted to say about the prog. I think we covered pretty much everything. Should we do our wrap up?
Yeah, we should do a wrap up. So we now have multiple podcasts out. You can find us on you can find Prog Slog on YouTube and Apple Podcasts, basically everywhere you can get podcasts now.
Spotify, I believe.
Spotify. David, our friend and co-host of Voice from the Pod, was saying maybe push for Spotify and Apple Podcasts, so then we can see that you're listening.
Yeah.
But we are available wherever podcasts are found now.
We're on the YouTube. I don't know if you said that.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, Prog Slog. We're also members of the Boys from the Pod podcast.
This was a Boys from the Pod production.
Yep. And you can find Boys from the Pod in all the same places. The music for both of those podcasts is provided by the Culton Home School of Psychic Defense. And I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for listening, I guess.
See you next prog.